Hi everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on hosting a Personal Digital Archiving Day event. I'm Stephanie Lamson. On behalf of the ALCTS Continuation Education Committee and the Preservation Week Working Group, I'm happy to introduce this free webinar as part of ALA's upcoming Preservation Week. Many thanks to our sponsors of today's webinar, George Blood LP, the HF Group, and Acme Bookbinding. Our presenter today is Erin Engle, Digital Archivist with the National Digital Information Infrastructure and Preservation Program at the Library of Congress. She coordinates and contributes to communications, outreach, and social media activities for the program. She also works on developing personal digital archiving resources and is editor of the monthly Library of Congress Digital Preservation newsletter. She has a BA in International Politics and French from Penn State and an MSLS from Catholic University. Before we begin, a few quick notes on today's webinar. If you have questions during the webinar, please type them into the question box on your screen, and Erin will do her best to answer as many questions as possible at the conclusion of her presentation. Also, please note that today's presentation will be recorded and available at the ALCTS webinar website and on YouTube. You're also invited to use the Twitter back channel, #ALCTSCE, to interact with other participants during the webinar. However, please continue to submit questions for the presenter in the question box on the screen. The presenter and host will not monitor Twitter during the presentation. And with that, I'll turn the program over to Erin.
Thank you, Stephanie, for the introduction, and to ALCTS for hosting this webinar, which is a part of a series in celebration of ALA's Preservation Week, which is April 21st through 27th this year. I'm really excited to have this opportunity to talk to you in advance of Preservation Week about holding a Personal Digital Archiving Day program. Preservation Week is an important national initiative. Those of us information professionals working in libraries, archives, and other institutions believe passionately about information and knowledge sharing. We care equally about our collections and the users of our collections, whether they be research or scholarly patrons or the general public. We understand the importance of the preservation of these collections for current and future use. And that's why Preservation Week is an excellent time for us to highlight and promote personal preservation practices for our local communities. We have the opportunity to provide individuals with the information, tools, and resources to save their personal and family collections, to pass them on to future generations. So this is me. It's a picture from the 2010 National Book Festival. Since that year, the program I work on, the National Digital Information Infrastructure and Preservation Program, or INDIP, has been fortunate to have a place to share our personal digital archiving guidance with scores of people locally and from around the country. It was about this time when we started increasing our outreach efforts for our guidance. Now we are very interested in encouraging efforts in supporting libraries and other institutions around the country to share this guidance with their communities. So today I'm going to talk about how you can host a public program on preserving personal digital information using the Personal Digital Archiving Day Kit. First, I'll give you a brief overview of our guidance on the kit. Then, I'll go into detail about the kit, the specific resources included in it, and how it is organized. Then I'll go through some basic guidance and some examples and ideas for holding an event or program. Hopefully, by the end of this session, you'll see why holding this kind of program can be a valuable benefit for your organization and your local community. It wasn't until a few years ago here at the library that we started thinking about the challenges individuals face with caring for their personal digital information. We are, and have been for years, creating our own personal digital data, taking digital photos, making videos and audio recordings, writing emails and electronic documents. We are designing websites and writing blogs. We are sharing our personal content on social media sites and on the web. And relatively speaking, there is little effort involved in creating our own digital content. We have electronic devices at home, at work, in our hands, with the constant opportunity to capture a moment of our day in pictures or words that we can share or we cannot. This content ends up living on our computers, our mobile devices, or in the cloud. We may think our digital stuff is safe or saved, but it isn't, or we may not be thinking about it at all. While there is a low level of time and energy put into producing our digital content, there are huge efforts and challenges involved in ensuring our digital information or collections persist now and in the future. One of the major challenges of persistence is technology. Technology provides us with the opportunity to enrich our lives, which in many respects is a blessing and a curse. We know that technology will change, and computer, hardware, mobile devices, and other forms of media, which we use to create our personal digital information, will change. Storage media and containers will become obsolete. The software to know and understand what our content is will change or become obsolete. The way in which we share our digital information or to know more about the lives of our family and our friends will change. While we embrace the digital lifestyle, this dependency on software and hardware presents difficulty in addressing personal digital preservation strategies and to keep a record of our digital lives. Our personal digital collections are photos, emails, video files, and other digital items that we may want to look at in the future. They are our electronic financial paperwork, our wills, our personal audio recordings, our websites, and our blogs. In addition to the risk of dependency I mentioned earlier on software and hardware, people too have an effect on the longevity of their digital items. These challenges include knowing where one might have digital information they care about on one device or across multiple devices, and organizing their digital items in a way that is understandable or makes them findable in the future. But as information professionals, we know that we can help individuals take certain preservation actions to manage their own personal digital archives. We just need the resources to do it. Which is why here at INDIP we developed guidance for individuals to manage and preserve their personal digital collections. As you can see on the slide, here are our personal digital archiving tips. These 4 basic tips offer a starting point to help people begin to think about the process of preserving their personal digital information. These steps are identifying where you have your digital items, deciding which digital items you want to keep, organizing the items you've chosen to save, and making copies and managing them over time. These tips have been designed as really non-technical in nature and high level. We know patrons and our users have various levels of knowledge and experience with technology. So these tips are not meant to overwhelm people with lots of specific information. I'll walk through these steps with you to give you a better understanding of our guidance. The first step is identify where you have your digital files. This involves asking questions like, are your files located on your computer, laptop, mobile devices, other storage media like CDs, DVDs, SD cards, or external drives? Do you have personal content on the web or stored in the cloud or on other sharing services? For individuals who have completely embraced the digital lifestyle or those just dabbling in it, knowing just where they have their digital files stored or residing is an important first step. The next step is decide which items you want to save for your collection or archive. The guidance we give says, pick items that are especially important to you. This may be all of your items or just some of them. We stress this is where you would want to be selective and weed through your files. You may not need every picture from your friend's wedding to remember the event. Or another way to think about it is, particularly if you are creating a collection to pass down to your family, do you think your relatives would want to see every picture from your friend's wedding? The third step is organize the files you've chosen to save. We start by saying, create a file directory and folder structure on your computer. You could name it My Archive, with subfolders named in a consistent way to help you sort your digital files. This is where you will save the files you decide to keep. It is important to name all of your files, but be sure to use a file naming system that is easy and understandable. Stick with a system that works for you so that you know where to find your content, and make sure it is consistent. We found we get a lot of practical questions about this step. Given different computer operating systems and versions of them, people want to know specifically where to look on their own computers to do this. And given people's understanding of how to go about renaming files or not understanding it, they'll want to know how to do this too. So if you're talking with someone about this, just be prepared to answer some basic technical questions. Also for this step, we suggest writing a brief description about your collection or archive, which could include the file directory structure and its location, where backup copies are stored locally or externally, and if there are any special details needed to access their digital information, like logins or passwords to external sites. Then we suggest printing this out and keeping it with important papers so that if anyone needs to find this in the future, they'll know where to go. The last step is make copies and manage your collection or archive over time. You want to make at least 2 copies and save them on separate types of media. One of those copies can stay on your computer or laptop, but put the other copy on separate external media, such as DVDs, CDs, portable hard drives, or store it in the cloud. It's also important to store your copies in different locations that are as physically far apart as practical. That way, should disaster strike one of your copies, the other copy is in a remote and hopefully safe location. Another part of this step is managing your collection. You want to check your media and files at least once a year to make sure that you can read the files on the media and the media itself is in good condition. And move or migrate your collection or archive onto new media at least every 5 years. We get a lot of questions about why we suggest moving content every 5 years onto new media. It's because all digital storage media have short lifespans. It depends on the durability of the media itself, our own usage, storage, and handling of the media, and of course, obsolescence. Some media may last longer than others, or not. But 5 years is a good rule to follow and lowers the risk of total loss of your collection because of corrupt media. Raising awareness of digital preservation at the personal level and sharing this guidance is something we're excited about, and one of the focuses of what we're doing here at INDIS. We've held and participated in various kinds of public outreach events. For the last few years, we've had an informational table at the National Book Festival where we talk with people, share our handouts and guidance, and bring our own assortment of obsolete media for show and tell. We have our own collection here that we've gathered over time, and we've found that it's a really popular way to start conversations with people as they're walking by our table. We also give online workshops and presentations like this webinar. We presented at professional conferences, most recently at Personal Digital Archiving 2013. We've developed online resources and a special section on our website, digitalpreservation.gov/personal archiving. We use social media to spread the word on our Twitter and our Facebook accounts. And we share a lot about personal digital archiving on our blog, the signal. And now we're starting to reach out to our local community organizations in DC to give talks and workshops. Of all these outreach opportunities, we found the largest reach and community-focused efforts have been through participating in ALA's Preservation Week. We planned and hosted Personal Digital Archiving Day events during the week since 2010. Preservation Week is a great opportunity for the general public to learn how their local libraries' collections are cared for. And it's also a way for libraries in turn to talk to their patrons about why digital materials are at risk if not cared for. At these events we've held, being able to talk directly with the public, we find that many people haven't given much thought about saving their digital content. They may be stressing over how to keep track of their digital photos, for example, but they aren't necessarily taking actions or addressing their concerns. Most people are actually really excited to discover we have this information, which is why we recognize that public librarians and other informational professionals around the country who on a daily basis talk with their patrons are in a better position locally to connect with their communities and share this information. Based on our experiences planning and hosting outreach activities, we adapted our personal digital archiving resources and created the Personal Digital Archiving Day Kit. It is aimed towards libraries, archives, and other cultural institution staff to help them plan and hold a program of their own about promoting and raising awareness among the public about digital preservation. The resources included in the kit are organized in a simple, instructive way to plan, organize, publicize, and run an event, program, or other type of activity. The kit is a compilation of our in-depth resources, which are based on the personal digital archiving tips that I went through earlier. So these include tip sheets for different types of digital materials. We have handouts about saving digital photos, email, video, blogs, websites, and other social media, personal digital records, and audio files. We've also created supplemental how-to guides based on questions and comments we've gotten from attendees at our personal archiving events. For example, we created a supplemental handout for archiving email that talks in more detail about the different types of email systems. And we also created a how-to guide for transferring photos from your camera to your computer. We produced videos on introductory digital preservation topics and have made available recordings from our previous events featuring library staff talking about archiving digital photos, social media, and preserving recorded sound. These videos and recordings are available on our website and on YouTube, and we've also made them available as individual downloadable files off of our website. The kit also points to additional resources, such as format-specific information, like to websites that talk about adding descriptions to digital photo files. We also point to online introductory digital preservation resources. The latter may be useful for you as information professionals to gain a broader understanding of digital preservation, or if you have really interested patrons or users who are interested in the topic, you can point them here too. The kit includes templates to plan and run your event, such as planning checklists, event flyers and posters, a press release template, and a post-evaluation survey form for attendees and staff. A reference copy of the kit is available for download on our website. It includes all of the print handouts, the templates, and pointers to the online resources I just mentioned. As I mentioned, we've organized the kit in an instructive way and into 4 activities to break down the task of throwing an event. Those actions are planning, organizing, publicizing, and running your event. I'll go through the kit's guidance for each of these steps. For the planning phase, you'll want to decide who will help plan the event in your organization, as well as the purpose and audience for your event. Do you want to hold an event or program during Preservation Week or at another time of the year? Are you interested in collaborating with other local organizations to host a program? Will you need to recruit a few coworkers to help you plan it or have a more formal planning committee? Another part of planning an event is deciding what type you want to host. Based on our experience and the way in which we've organized the kit, we talk about two types of events you can host: an informational or educational program or an instructional or hands-on program. I'll go into these different types in a few slides. So based on the type of event you've chosen, you'll want to draft a timeline and a task list. This will help you get a better idea of the scale, scope, and resources your event will require and the staff and volunteer time required to run it. You also want to select a venue. Ideally, this would be a public or civic building, like a library, school, or community center, that is easy to access and centrally located. You'll want to make it as convenient as possible for people to attend. And again, think about if you're going to need to enlist any staff or volunteers to help you put the event on. The kit has some tips for organizing your event. It's really important to consider the day and time for it. If you've chosen your audience, consider the best time generally they may be available, whether it's during a weekday or night or on the weekend. Also, think about the time of day on the weekends, whether it'll be in the morning or the afternoon. You also need to confirm the venue if the venue is available during your date and time. And check any local community calendars so you are not overlapping on any other programs that are happening on your date. So for the venue, consider what will be needed for the room or space setup. You may need tables or chairs, audiovisual equipment, internet access, and signs to direct the public to your space or room. It's also a good idea to sketch a room layout and plan where the table, speaker, and materials will be staged. If your organization has a budget for programs, or if you have to submit one, it's a good idea to create one especially for this event. Include any supplies you'll need, costs for publicity, room rental fees or speaker fees, catering costs, and if you're going to have any photography or video. Publicizing and marketing your event is just as important as planning it. And one thing that we found here that is really easy for us to do is to write a basic description of our event, and then we repurpose it. For example, a description can be used in press releases to contact local press, to send out to listservs, to provide a copy to local newsletters or to send to community bloggers, and to create flyers and posters. And of course, to send out information on any of your social media channels. Just keep thinking market, market, market. Something as simple as talking to people in your organization and asking them to share it with their friends and family is one easy way to spread the word. There are some preparations you can do to help the event run smoothly. Creating setup, presentation, and/or cleanup schedules with responsibilities for staff and volunteers, if you've enlisted them. Schedule a meeting or meet with them for last-minute instructions to make sure that everyone is on the same page with what will be happening. And always be prepared. Have plenty of handouts, promotional materials on hand and ready to distribute, and also perhaps staff volunteers to direct people to the room or space where you'll be holding the event. And make sure that you provide post-event evaluation forms or surveys for staff and attendees. This will help you evaluate the impact of your event for future programs and to help design similar types of events in your community. As I mentioned before, the kit includes templates for planning checklists, a press release template, templates for flyers and posters, and post-evaluation forms. These are available for download individually on our website as MS Word documents, so you can customize them to your planning efforts. As I mentioned earlier, there could be two different types of personal digital archiving day programs to host. And again, this is based on our experience planning events and also the way in which we've designed the kits. So those types of events are an informational or educational program or an instructive hands-on program. I'll go into detail about these different types and talk about how you can use the kit or components of the kit to hold either. Some of the steps in the planning, organizing, publicizing, and running stages I just went over may not apply to your program or activity. And that's okay, because the resources in the kit can be independently used. Informational or educational programs allow for great flexibility for tailoring one-time or a continuous program for your patrons. It may also require less planning effort and may be less resource-intensive on staff time. There are also maybe no cost or low cost involved in this type of program compared to an instructional program. For this type, what you're doing is communicating or sharing the basic personal digital archiving guidance that I previously went over. So this can be done through a special display or information table in your library or institution with just the printouts, the handouts at your reference or circulation desk, or setting up a table in a high-traffic area that people will walk by and can pick up handouts or flyers. You could also create a web presence and link to videos, any of the handouts, and other resources on our website. And if you're on Twitter or Facebook, you can post links to these specific resources. These are easy ways of doing one thing during Preservation Week, or to continuously share personal digital archiving information. Compared to an informational program or activity, an instructional or hands-on program not only shares personal digital archiving resources, but it suggests building an interactive component into it. This addition could include a presentation using the resources, or seeking out a speaker or expert to deliver a talk or demonstration. This type of event will likely require multiple individuals to help plan and host. More planning and organizing is required in advance. Depending on when you want to hold the event or if you want to collaborate with another community organization, be realistic about the amount of time it will take to plan it. Workshops and demonstrations are generally very popular, but require many moving parts to put together. So here's an example of a brief sketch of what could be an instructional program around saving digital photos using certain components and content from the kit. So for example, you could do a presentation or talk walking through the tips specifically for saving digital photos. You could show a couple of our digital preservation videos that would be relevant, such as why digital preservation is important for you, our recording of archiving digital photos, and our video on adding descriptions to digital photos. You could reach out to a local photographer in your community to give a talk on the technical details of digital photos and taking photos, like file format types, photo software programs, or photo metadata. So these examples I've listed here and all of these resources can be found at these web addresses on our website. To reiterate, the kit compiles resources in a simple and instructive way to hold an event, but as you could see from the previous example, you can pick and choose the content from the kit that fits your vision for an outreach event. And of course, adapt the planning and promotional templates that you could download to help run your event. Aside from the kit, ALA's Preservation Week website is an excellent resource. They have an event map that links to organizations all over the country holding programs during the week. It also has an excellent resource in the form of a speaker locator. So if you're interested in inviting someone to present or hold a workshop, you could check here first. The site has a number of preservation awareness resources for both analog and digital materials. And it also has lots of promotion materials, like downloadable Preservation Week logos in web and print-ready format. It links to videos and has ideas for key messages to talk about preserving family and personal collections. ALCTS is also hosting 3 other webinars during Preservation Week, which you'll hear about at the end of my presentation. But I wanted to highlight one of those that will be going on preserving digital photos, which my colleague Mike Aschenfelder will be presenting. He'll talk in specific detail about our guidance as it relates to saving digital photos. And that will be on Wednesday, April 24th at 2 p.m. Everything I've talked about today, the personal digital archiving guidance, the handouts, the videos, the online resources, is available on our website at digitalpreservation.gov/personalarchiving. A reference kit is also available on this section of our site. We're really interested in engaging with people about personal digital archiving on Facebook and Twitter, so that's where we share a lot of information. So please follow us or like us. We also talk a lot on our blog about personal digital archives. Anything from touching on any of the different types of formats and going into more detail about how to save those digital materials, to sharing our stories of personal digital preservation practices. So we'd love to hear from you with any questions or comments through any of the channels that I mentioned, and we will definitely do our best to answer them and to respond to you. And I sincerely appreciate your attention today and your support, and I'll be happy to take any questions. And I also wanted to add that any questions that I don't answer today, that I will be able to take a look at those, and then we'll write a blog post here and post it on our blog, Signal. So we'll be sending that out on all of our channels and providing it to ALCTS to send it out, and that way you can check back and see some answers to questions you might have asked. So let me see if we can have questions. Okay. So I got a question here. One of the first ones is, how much is the kit, and how much does it cost, and where can I get it? So the kit is free, and it's available on our website at, let me see, it's available on our website here at digitalpreservation.gov/personalarchiving/padkit/index.html. And so let's see what other questions. This is an interesting question. Can you suggest some possible community collaborations that would help to improve the presentation here? So the example that I went through before about putting on a presentation for saving digital photos, I talked about bringing in a local photographer to help answer questions, to put on a workshop, or talk more about the technical details of that. But there may also be other organizations in your community that may be also teaching workshops on digital photos. So there may be opportunity to look at any of the educational classes where this is happening, and whether it's actually bringing a class into the library and then sharing your information there, but maybe reaching out to them and maybe going to one of these classes, doing a presentation, or passing out the resources there. So another question is, any guidance regarding software for saving and sharing digital content for an office setting or home? That's a good question. Well, unfortunately, here at the library, we cannot recommend any specific type of software or vendor, but this is a good question when you're talking about, I guess it's sharing your digital content between devices. So there are a lot of, I guess, third-party cloud services that you could use in which you could access your content. Obviously, if you, through an account, you can access it on different devices. However, if you're going to be doing this, you want to make sure that these aren't your only copies that you're using or saving on these cloud services. You would want to make sure, again, to have another copy on your home computer or other device or external media. So periodically checking and scanning these files and saving them in a different location would be a good tip here. So another question is, what is the most frequent question and answer you encounter during a public program? That is a good question, too. Well, we get all kinds. And I guess one of the biggest questions we get has to deal with scanning. So as I'm sure you'll notice, we did not talk, or I did not touch on scanning here. Our guidance is for content that, foreign digital content, that content that first existed in electronic form. Now we get a lot of questions for people who are digitizing or converting their photos, their documents, and scanning them to digital files. So they have questions on the practical aspects of doing this, anything from what kind of scanner should I buy, what resolution should I scan at for print, and also for photos in black and white or color. So we address scanning very loosely here because we don't have specific technical advice to give, but we have created a handout called Scanning Our Personal Collections, and this is available on our website. And this handout offers some basic tips, starting with preparing scanner to going through some of the definitions of scanners, from anything from what like DPI is and what resolution is, to actually going about saving scanned files onto your computer. So, like I said, this isn't really technical advice, but it goes with our guidance as we're offering starting points for people to go about starting their project. Let's see. So this is an interesting question, too. Can you comment on what is the main concern among the general public when it comes to preserving their personal digital content? The biggest concern I hear about is people are really overwhelmed by it. They're overwhelmed by the amount of content that they're creating. And after talking with people and going through these steps, they say, wow, that's a lot of work, but you're telling me that I have to continuously do this and move my collection or archive onto different media every 5 years. Well, that's a lot of work. So why am I doing this if the software and hardware are going to be obsolete. And so that is, this continual management, I guess, is a big concern in that it requires effort. And so, again, one of the reasons our tips are very low level and basic is that we talk to people and say, well, it's whatever level of effort you would like to devote to your personal digital collections. You can devote a lot of time or not at all. It just depends on your level of comfort and what you want to do with your time. All right, let's move on to the next question. Another question about scanning. Do you actually do the scanning of photos at these events, or do you just help lay out the steps for archiving? We lay out the steps for archiving, but I wanted to bring this question up because, or address this question here, is this is a way in which potentially another idea for a demonstration or a workshop you could do. There are some libraries and archives that actually hold scanning days where they invite people to come in and bring their photos or their documents and to scan them or show people how to scan them. And what would be a good component to this would actually be having the personal digital archiving guidance or tips available to these people, because once their items are converted, they are still left with these digital files that they are going to have to care for and manage long term. Okay, let's see. So any tips on integrating digital archiving awareness during Preservation Week with physical preservation? We may or may not have people with interests or both. We found this too, actually, through a lot of our events. People come in specifically to ask about caring for their physical photos or caring for their physical documents. And then some people come in and want to talk to us just about the digital only. We bridge this, again, with the scanning, digitizing conversation to get people interested in one side or the other. But one of the best ways we found to do this is actually to concentrate on a specific type of digital format. So again, digital photos is one of the most popular types of content that people are interested in saving. And doing a particular focus on this type of file and this type of physical photos really helps to provide a concrete example of how you can do this. So another question is, would 2 hours be enough time to offer a digital archiving information class? I would say yes, actually. If you're going to be doing a workshop type of event, an hour and a half or 2 hours might be good. You could have a 15 or 20-minute presentation in the beginning to go over some of this guidance, and then you could actually focus specifically on a particular type of content. But a class we found, or a workshop type event, is a really great way to be interactive with people. So it's not only passing out handouts and asking people questions about the type of content they're using, but perhaps doing a demonstration on a live demo. Those are always kind of dangerous, but for example, doing a live demo on how to create a file directory structure on your computer, or you know, using a particular type of software program that your organization may be using, for example, a photo organizing software, that you know that people, that you could invite people to come into the class to learn how to use, but learn how to save the photos and archive them. So the kit is geared toward, I have a question here, are kits only available to libraries and preservation organizations, or can individuals order a kit? Well, again, the kit is available online for free, and you can download it. And it really is geared toward, it's written in a way for the information professional to hold an event. However, as I mentioned, all of the handouts that I talked about and the guidance and the tip sheets that we've created for public and individuals are included in this kit. So you could download it and then have the actual guidance for you that may be more relevant to you. Can you tell us more about the webinar on April 24th, and could it be a standalone presentation? So the webinar on preserving digital photos on April 24th will be geared toward the general public, libraries, librarians, archivists, and other information professionals, talking and actually doing an informational, educational presentation. So it will be walking through the steps, using digital photos as an example, but actually going into more detail about them. So, for example, in one of the steps I talked about, in organizing, I sort of quickly ran through the way to create the file directory structure and then naming files, but Mike will talk more, we'll go through more examples of this type of how to do this. And so, yes, it could be a standalone presentation. So if you are a librarian or other information professional and you're thinking about having a program during Preservation Week, you could actually run this presentation, this webinar for your patrons during the week. So, is there a government website where individuals can archive their personal digital information and photos? And that's an interesting question. We've never had that one before. And I would, no, there isn't actually. So it's your personal digital information, and a lot of the responsibility lies with you as an individual and as your content creator to make sure that you're the one caring for it, you're saving your digital information, and that you're the one responsible for passing it on long term. And so that's. Do your events include information about copyright and confidentiality? That's another interesting question. No, not necessarily. If we get questions about them, we will try to answer, but we don't talk about rights or privacy issues unless we get questions about them. Our guidance, we talk a lot about this being personal digital information. So any of the information that you're saving is really content that you should have created yourself or have the right, or it's your family's collection for you to be able to save and pass down long term. Do you have links for individual archiving that we could place on our website for patrons to link to. So all of our website has links to all of the resources that I mentioned, and a good, I guess I would suggest linking to one of the format-specific digital content tip sheets we have. So those are available on on our personal archiving section at this URL listed up at the top. And again, this could just be, you could describe it as some basic tips to walk through and then link to our site. Let's see. Is there any reason to be concerned about metadata with these projects? Another good question. So the metadata, the data about data, we talk about, we don't say the word metadata actually with, in a lot of our guidance because the general public generally isn't aware of some of the terms that we use in our community. So we try to keep it basic. But yes, when we talk about describing or renaming files or describing them, we talk about, using as much information for the person that would help them understand what that file is. So concerned about metadata in that we tell people to describe all of their items, and particularly with photos, we'll talk about adding descriptions to digital photos. If people have more questions, we actually point them to other resources that talk about photo metadata. And Mike will likely go into that during his presentation. So I hope I answered that question. If anyone would like me to expand on that, you can please ask it here. Let's see. Oh, this is an interesting comment. I was thinking about inviting our genealogy group to an event, and that is an excellent idea. One of the things, as I mentioned, that we're doing here recently in INDIP is that we are reaching out to our local community organizations, and some of those are, we've given talks to our local history group, local historians who are collecting and archiving information about certain areas of the city. But we also know that, genealogists are historians for families, and so if they're doing all of this research, whether it's they're actually going through archives, but now that they're using services to actually research their ancestry, any of the information that they gather from this and create will probably be in digital form. And so genealogists are actually an excellent group to reach out to and develop a program around. So let's see. I think that's all the time I have today for questions. But like I said, I will be taking a look at these questions and writing a blog post that answers more questions that I couldn't get to today, or that will go into more detail about them. So that's it for now. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Erin. That was terrific. Thanks for sharing all the really practical information as well as all those resources that can support hosting an event like that during Preservation Week, as well as mentioning some of the webinars, which we'll talk a little bit more now too. Let's see, for more information about preservation, you can see on your screen right now ALA's Preservation Week website, where you can find other great tips and resources to help you plan a Preservation Week event or preserve your own collections. And thanks again to our sponsors for today's webinar, George Blood LP, the HF Group, and Acme Bookbinding. And we would also like to thank our Preservation Week spokesperson, Steve Berry, for his support of preservation in ALA's Preservation Week. And last but not least, thanks to Amy Lana and Felicity Dykes for their technical assistance today. Also, please consider joining us for 3 free Preservation Week webinars, and they're listed on your screen right now, April 23rd through 25th. And there's more information about these and other upcoming webinars, web courses, and e-forums, and all that information can be found on the ALCTS webinar website that you also see on your screen right now. We hope you found today's session helpful. You'll soon receive a short online evaluation form. Please take a few minutes to fill it out and return it. Your comments help the ALCTS Continuing Education Committee evaluate and plan future continuing education offerings. If you're interested in viewing parts of the presentation again or sharing it with others, you'll receive an email with a link to the recording shortly after the conclusion of the webinar. And the presentation will also be archived and freely available at the ALCTS webinar website. Thank you all again for joining us today. Goodbye.